Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Battle Styles, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code Omnipoke. For today's video, we are going to be talking about Sword and Shield On and the staple cards within the new Sword and Shield On format post-rotation metagame, because there has been the announcement from Pokemon pretty much confirming what we all suspected, that the rotation this September is going to be taking out all of the tag team sets, leaving us with the sets from Sword and Shield onwards to play in the standard legal format. So we will be losing a ton of impactful cards, and I will be doing an impact of rotation video closer to the time. But for now, I think now that we have this confirmation, many people are starting to have a think about what cards they'd like to get hold of to be able to play when real tournaments hopefully come back within the Sword and Shield format block. So today I'm going to be going over the most important sort of universally good staple cards. What I mean by that is cards that can be considered for a number of decks, not just one specific archetype. So these are those sorts of things that you want to have in your binder at all times so that you can add them into a whole heap of decks. So we're going to be going over today trainer cards, supporter cards, stadium cards, tools, special energies, as well as Pokemon, which can be useful in a variety of decks. And then at the end, I'll be talking about just a quick sneak peek, really, at the Sword and Shield On metagame and what archetypes there could be around, just in case you were looking for some inspiration or looking for a few directions to head towards in terms of deck building for the post-rotation format. So let's start off with the supporter cards, and realistically, the supporter cards aren't changing much from the format that we know right now. Boss's Orders is an integral part of every single deck, really, and the cornerstones of Professor's Research and Marnie make up the bulk of the draw engines that most archetypes fall between, and I believe that having 4 copies of all of these will certainly be the safest route for you, because many decks will just be playing a straight 4-4-4 lineup of the supporters in the post-rotation metagame. On the right-hand side here, you see some that really do get slightly less of a look in than the big 3 on the left. But Birdkeeper, still a really nice switch out for you, whilst additionally drawing some cards, has some good synergies with the likes of Zacian, with Urshifu, and a few other Pokemon in the game. Skylar can be nice for picking out some key trainer cards at times, and Bruno is nice, really good shuffle draw actually, when you do suffer knockouts, so specifically good for 1 prize archetypes rather than 3 prize sort of VMAX decks. Now, we are losing ADP in rotation, so many people are sort of rejoicing at the idea of having more single prize decks being viable in the game. What I will say is, currently, we don't have any sort of bench protection, so I do believe that Urshifu variants, the Rapid Strike variants, could still be causing a lot of headaches for single prize archetypes. That said, Bruno still could be a decent supporter just for some nice hand refresh, where you're not having to do the big painful discard that Research can sometimes offer. So I still feel like picking up a good number of these, just in case there are 1 prize archetypes that are worth it in the game going forward. And of course, we don't know every single card from every single set in the Sword and Shield on block. There's actually an August expansion which is still coming out, which will obviously be legal during the time that rotation hits. So that's not to say that we won't get some protection for these cards. So I think Bruno is still certainly worth picking up, just in case we do get some bench protection cards that replaces Mew effectively. Then on the bottom side, we have sort of situational supporters, which aren't drawing you cards, but are really solid in certain spots. Team Yellgrunt is some nice energy removal, which can be used in combination with Crushing Hammer, or just being used on its own for a sort of tempo removal of energy attachment. Phoebe is nice for wall breaking through things like Decidueye and Zamazenta for your VMAX Pokemon. Leon is a really nice damage modifier and can be used to help score knockouts to reach on certain numbers. Cheryl is great healing, specifically for VMAXs. It states evolutions, but really the VMAXs are the things with the highest amount of hit points in the game, so Cheryl certainly can be nice. There are some tanking archetypes available in the Sword and Shield On format with the help of Bronzong. And of course, we've already seen that it works well with Urshifu variants in the current standard format. And finally, there's Rose. Rose hasn't seen a lot of play in the standard format, but I think going forward, having this energy acceleration option is certainly reasonable to just have in the binder. I've always had 4 Rose as soon as he has come out in Darkness Ablaze, and I think he's certainly worth like just holding on to, because he's, you know, just still one of the best energy accelerators, and potentially with things like Chaotic Swell leaving the format, we have, more emphasis on things like Rose Tower and Cricketune that can try and supplement a supporter like this, where you have that painful discard of your entire hand, but you can then top up cards again after the fact. So I still feel like Rose is worth picking up. Onto the items and tool cards. We'll start off on the left side of your screen here with the Ball Search. Quick Ball, Level Ball, Great Ball are our 3 best Ball Search cards in the Sword and Shield meta, and Evolution Incense is going to be important, especially for VMAXs, but also there are some Pokemon-based draw engines that can take advantage of Evo Incense, so I think maxing out copies of all of these is certainly reasonable. Rare Candy in the 4 counts. Now, this is obviously just safeguarding us, future-proofing us for any Stage 2s that come out in the future, but there are a few sort of fringe things. Obviously, Decidueye is still a really annoying wall for V and VMAX archetypes, and there could potentially be things like Cinderace in there as well, which you could think about using rare candies for the single prize Cinderace. And Rotom isn't really a Ball Search card, but it does have some great synergy alongside things like Oranguru, where you're able to piece together, the top 5 cards of your deck and Oranguru straight into that card when you rearrange them. So that's really cool, and I feel like it's an engine that I've seen a decent amount of in the Sword and Shield meta, so I feel like this could be a card that finally has the chance to shine when some of the more powerful cards we have at the moment are rotating. Things like Jirachi at the moment is pretty much keeping this at bay, because Jirachi gives you instant access, whereas Rotom needs to combine with Oranguru from Sword and Shield. But this effect is still powerful. You're still peeping the top 5, basically, to choose the best card you want there, which is really nice. Then we have some more supporter interaction. We have Palpad, which can recover supporter cards for you, and Pokegear, which can help you get them out the deck at the opportune moment. Pokegear has seen a lot of play in like Welder-based formats, so I feel like Pokegear could still be that supplementary card because it can help you reach for boss's orders, which is still going to be such an important card in the format, but potentially less play than in current standard, really, but still a card that I think is worth keeping an eye on. Then for switching effects, we have Switch and Escape Rope. These are oftentimes very, very high counts in the format, and I don't foresee that changing too much. Status conditions are slightly less relevant, and Jirachi Stellar Wish was one of the main reasons why we had such high counts of Switch. Scoop Up Net as well, we have advantage of Stellar Wish, we have Mewtwo, we have Giratina right now. So many good cards combined with Scoop Up Net. But there is still going to be Zigzagoon, there's still going to be some decent single prize Pokemon that can take advantage of Net, which I will be looking at later on, so I can certainly foresee these cards still being in high counts. Potentially Switch reduces in play a little bit, but Rope could be taking that mantle as well. Still a lot of speculation, I still foresee reasonably high Switch counts in decks, so getting play sets of these is certainly definitely a good idea. Then at the top here we have the sort of energy manipulation. We have Recovery from Ordinary Rod, Energy Recycler, and Energy Retrieval. We have Energy Search, obviously replacing Energy Spinner after rotation, just for an item searchable means of getting energy cards. Now, obviously, Spinner had upsides beyond just being a search for 1 energy, because it could sometimes be 3 energies, and it was also like a Stellar Wishable target, whereas now we don't really have that same synergy going ahead. It's only really if we play things like Skylar going forward where I believe we'll ever see Energy Search see play, or if there are situations where you play multiple typed basic energy cards in one deck, which ADP was certainly one of the main decks that we had that abused 2 energy types within one archetype. It's actually not super common, so Energy Search isn't one of these like really powerful cards. It's just one of those things that it happened to be useful in the previous format, so I feel like only picking up 2 is probably going to be enough for you there, just in case you are playing things like Skylar engines or something similar. Energy Switch, obviously very nice. It can combine nicely with things like EXP Share, which I definitely think is underutilized right now in Standard, but potentially in Sword and Shield On, we'll see more of this card. Turbo Patch, again, hasn't really kicked off massively. It's kind of been on the fringes of Standard right now, but it is a way that you can accelerate extra energy cards, which is never a bad thing. And then the energy removal cards. These have seen a lot more play in the Standard format, Crushing Hammer and Fan of Waves, just putting your opponent back a peg or 2, so certainly worth picking up. And some of the key tools of the format, Tool Scrapper and Tool Jammer, are the sort of disruption for tool cards that I'd think about getting a few of. And then we have Air Balloon, great for moving in and out of Pokemon. Toughness Cape and Big Charm for increasing the hit points of your Pokemon. Obviously, Toughness Capes give you 50 hit points, but only for basics. And the Big Charm is more universal. It can go onto your VMAXs, which is obviously very nice, and can go onto your Stage 2 Pokemon as well if you think it's worthwhile. And Vitality Band helps you push that damage potentially 10 damage is the difference between a KO and not, so there will be archetypes that want to have the extra break point of damage. So in those spots, you're going to want to get your hands on some Vitality Bands. Next up for stadiums and energy, ultimately there's a lot of energies and stadiums which are type specific. So really the sort of universal ones that I think about picking up are few and far between. The only real stadium I think is worthwhile right now that can go into a plethora of decks would be Training Court. I think out the gates, I've seen it a lot in Frostmoth variants over, throughout the standard format, but I do foresee Training Court, having a place in a number of different archetypes, actually looking towards the Chilling Reign side of things, where people could be using Calyrex, the Shadow Rider, and Training Court gets your energy back from the discard pile, which can then be instantly put into play to draw yourself some cards. So this is certainly one that I have sort of on the speculative side because of the Chilling Reign expansion, which will be interacting with Sword and Shield on format. And then for special energies, Capture Energy is another great way to get additional Pokemon into play. Twin Energy can give some great acceleration to non-V archetypes, essentially. The main abuser of Twin Energy right now in the format is Mad Party, and Mad Party is unfortunately losing triple acceleration energy, and I don't believe it's going to be able to cope with just having 4 Twin in the game with no current way to recover Twin Energy cards, and because your hit points are so low on your Mad Partiers, it's very unrealistic to expect 1 Twin Energy to get more than 1 use oftentimes, because they're so small that they instantly get response KO'd by the opponent in almost every situation. So I think it's difficult to foresee Mad Party being a successful archetype, so you could hold off on the Twins if you want to, but it's just one of these cards that you look at every single non-V Pokemon that gets printed, and they can all have the synergy with Twin Energy going forward. So I think it's a nice one to have always in the binder. Same thing for Aurora Energy. It's seen a lot of play throughout its time, oftentimes with Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX, but I do foresee there being just a ton of different reasons to want to play Aurora Energy going forward as well. It gives you so much flexibility, and it's already been in a huge number of decks already. Onto the Pokemon then. These are only really Pokemon that I'm having mostly for draw in a lot of these situations. These are just cards that can be pushed into all sorts of different decks because they help you get set up. That's what makes these Pokemon staples. That's what makes them so important. So first of all, for the V Pokemon, Kricketune V, that exciting stage ability allowing you to draw up to 4 when it's in that active spot, and even when it's on the bench, it can allow you to draw up to 3 cards in hand. Great for, protection around Marnie. Obviously, Reset Stamp will be rotating when we are in Sword and Shield on, but still really nice to protect against Marnie and give yourself some additional cards in that late game to try and push towards things like Boss's Orders to try and close the game. Speaking of which, Eldegoss is going to be that great late game finisher, as we've seen many a times over in the current standard format. I believe its role will continue, helping you piece together, Marnies and researchers at the right times, as well as Boss's Orders to hopefully close out games. Zacian V, we've seen Intrepid Sword be used in a ton of different archetypes just to end your turn on a +3 cards. That's a really good deal on the opening stages of the game to help you set up for your next turn, but also on turns where you're looking for certain combination pieces to win the game. If you just don't hit those pieces, you can end your turn. If you're going to pass anyway, you may as well take those additional cards in the back with a Zacian, so never a bad deal. And Crobat V, really, we've only seen this at like 1 and 2 counts, so the 3 count may be surprising to you, but when we are having a huge gutting of cards, where we are essentially losing Dedenne GX, which is the other card that you normally see alongside Crobat in archetypes to draw, Crobat's the only thing you have left, so we're going to have slightly higher counts of Crobat going forward. I think 3 is a fairly safe count. I wouldn't think it's outrageous to play 4. Obviously, if you are going the Eternatus route, you will want to get that 4th copy. Same thing for Zacian. I've got 1 in here just for everyone needs a Zacian, but if you're playing a Zacian deck, you will clearly need more than 1 copy. So yeah, those are the most important V Pokemon, and I do feel like the Crobat and Eldegoss package are going to make their way into a ton of decks. The Kricketune and the Zacian, a little bit more sparse, but still certainly worth picking up the one of because of the flexibility of both of these cards. For the single prizes then, Oranguru, I already mentioned its great synergy alongside Rotomphone. It also has great synergy, certainly helps out against protecting against your opponent using Marnie, and as of recording, this is the only hand disruption mechanic we have in the game. Reset Stamp is gone, Marnie is all we have, so effectively, if you want to protect around Marnie and make yourself essentially disruption proof, you just need Primate Wisdom on your side. So protecting a card from being taken away from you is going to be such a great way to end your turn. So Primate Wisdom is great for that. It also helps with Professor's Research, where you can protect cards from being discarded. All round, really, really awesome card. So yeah, certainly worth picking up a one of, potentially even a second copy as well. One kind of that minimum. If you feel like this ability gets even stronger next rotation, it certainly could be worth getting more. Amazing Red Jirachi. It's not like a huge dig into the deck, but it does let you look at an additional 2 cards. So it's something nice that you can put up into the active position if you are already using something like a Bird Keeper, something like a Switch or an Escape Rope, and just if you air balloon the Jirachi, you get an extra look at 2 cards to help you draw throughout the game and make things a little bit smoother if you do suffer knockouts and that sort of thing. Gourmandize from Snorlax. It's kind of been overshadowed right now because it's not exactly a fast way of drawing cards, but I do still feel like this can generate a huge amount of value. We've seen it start to sneak into some Urshifu variants just to end your turn 1, gaining a decent number of cards, knowing that you need to jump into that active position anyway. And I do foresee that potentially being the future of a number of decks, just because, similar to Intrepid Sword, you'd rather end your turn in those opening stages gulping up a few more cards, give yourself a lot of options for the following turn. So I'm certainly looking at Snorlax as potentially the predecessor to Jirachi engines in many archetype. Also because the natural hit points of Snorlax is just relatively high. Think about things like Victini V Max that can only hit 100 into non-V Pokemon. That could actually be a super relevant number to be aware of. So the 130 of Snorlax is actually like a really big deal for survivability in what could be one of the biggest matchups going ahead in the next format. So yeah, chonky Snorlax is going to be a really important card, I think. And it leans into the Scoop Up Net engine, and it leads into Bird Keeper, which are all reasonable cards right now anyway. Speaking of Scoop Up Net, Galarian Zigzagoon with that Headbutt Tantrum ability, very similar to the Vitality Band, but this is a searchable copy of Vitality Band essentially, because you can use your Ball Search cards to grab that Zigzagoon at the right time that you need it to change the damage and increase it by 1, and it can be more than 1 if you are also playing Scoop Up Nets, which could be the case if you are playing some of these other single prizes in your decks. So Zigzagoon continues to be a very, very strong card going forward. Up here, we have some of the more speculative ones. These aren't really ones that have had a look in Standard just yet. Again, that's probably because Stellar Wish is just so good, whereas some of the ones down here are already seeing some play, which gives me more encouragement for these ones. The ones up top, these are going to be probably cheaper right now and isn't going to break the bank to get a handful of them, and I do feel like they certainly could have their purposes. Celebi can help you look at the top 6 to grab energy cards so you don't miss early game energy attachments, which is still a big deal for many archetypes, especially the sort of 1 attach per turn VMAXs that we are going to be playing lots of. Manaphy with that Ocean Search lets you look at the top 6 for a Pokemon. In the early game, this is still an absolute treat for you because you really don't want to miss out on a turn 1 V or a turn 2 V Max. I do think compared to something like Stellar Wish, it does get much, much weaker in the late game, but it could be a strong enough card in the early stages to still play 4 copies of this because you're not leaving your V or V Max in the line of fire on the opening 2 turns until you're ready to attack, until you're ready to use the boss's orders on your opponent and get that incentive, get the momentum on your side. Whereas if they're going to come in and swing first, they better have a boss's orders, otherwise they're only taking 1 prize on Manaphy, and you're effectively starting that race by going to a 1.5 by hitting into a VMAX. You're probably not one-shotting a VMAX because hit points are so high right now, unless you're hitting for weakness, but at least you're getting that momentum into their main attacker, which is a bigger deal. So just having things like Snorlax, having things like Manaphy, protecting your big dude in the back, making you have the boss's orders first, or sorry, making your opponents have the boss's orders first, means that there will be occasions where they don't, and then you can be the one bossing them on the following turn. So huge value in just leaving a 1 prize up into the active. That's why I think Manaphy could potentially be a new engine going forward. Rotom, I only feel like you'll ever play 1 copy of this card, but if you are playing that Rotom phone engine, potentially with like multiple Oranguru in your deck, Roto Choice can be nice just for some early game search to make sure you're getting the wisdom value from the opening stages. I think this is kind of a fringe one, so it's not gonna... I'm not going to feel bad if you don't pick this up, but I feel like it's just a nice one-off to potentially have if ever we are playing heavily Rotom phone-based engines. And then we have some evolution-based draw. Chinchino's seen a lot of play since Level Ball came back in a whole heap of decks, and I can foresee that continuing in the future. And yeah, just such good value, and many decks can take advantage of extra card draw. The Inteleon line, similarly, has done well fairly recently, again, thanks to the introduction of Level Ball. That Shady Dealings tutor effect is just such a nice thing to have at your side, so that you're not whiffing certain pieces. You can build your deck in such a way that you can piece out tons of different things just from that Shady Dealings. You can be grabbing supporters, of course, but you can go, Quick Ball, Incense, Energy Search if you want to. You can piece together specific disruption pieces as well, like Fan of Waves if you really wanted to. So the Inteleon line is super versatile. The reason I'm only saying 2 of the largest Inteleon, the highest evolution, I should say, is because there could potentially be the Chilling Rain Inteleon coming out as well, which is a Rapid Strike Inteleon that allows you to place, I think, 2 counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it's like a Decidueye effect, essentially. So I think if you are going to be playing a Sword and Shield on Inteleon line, you're probably playing a split. And to be honest, it could just be 1 of the Shading Dealings and 3 of the Rapid Strike Inteleon going forward. So 2 would be my maximum on this guy. But the Drizzle and the Sobble certainly are reasonable. One thing I would say is if you are waiting until Chilling Rain comes out regardless, I would look to get the Battle Styles Sobble because it has a slightly better early game attack. It can search out some cards for you. And it is a Rapid Strike card itself, so if you are playing the Tower of Waters Stadium card, you will also grant yourself free retreat. So maybe for right now, this is the best Sobble in the game, but that could be changing come Chilling Rain, so just bear that in mind as well. Right then, so that's all the staple cards, and just wanted to leave you with some inspiration if you did want to start looking to get specific archetypes that currently fit your playstyle or anything like that. These are kind of the archetypes that I've identified early on from what I've seen from things like the Tablemon Sword and Shield On tournaments. Now, again, I must stress that Chilling Rain will be impacting the rotation, and there is also a secret set that we've seen no cards for as of yet. That will also be having an impact on the Sword and Shield On format. So these are just the cards that we currently have available to go out and purchase. But if you did want to, start making some archetypes early and get some play testing in, even just playing in the Tablemon tournaments that are still ongoing, might I add, are a great way to get some experience for the Sword and Shield On format. So certainly go over to playlimitless.com and partake in some of these tournaments and look at the metagame for some of these and look at deck lists to give yourself some inspiration for cards, because it certainly can be helpful. But just quickly eyeballing it and looking at the tournament results of those tournaments and seeing what cards we have remaining, there's archetypes like Eternatus, where you might want to pick up some type-specific support. Victini VMAX, certainly very strong. Most of the fire support gets gutted, so you only really need to pick up the Vs and the VMAX themselves and potentially some Heat Fire Energies. Both Single Strike and Rapid Strike are getting improved on in Chilling Rain. They get even more support, but even right now from Battle Styles, they basically come out of the box all from that set and have a ton of support around them, which is obviously not rotating. So basically the entire deck list for both of these archetypes are intact. Dragapult VMAX, certainly a decent Psychic type. Psychic is getting a huge buff as well from Chilling Rain, so keep an eye out for those sorts of cards going forward. Metal also got a huge amount of support over the last few sets. Zacian and Zamazenta can be strong enough on their own, potentially, with the help of Rusted Sword Coating and Metal Sorcerer, of course. But there could also be some tanking VMAX archetypes, using Bronzong to move your energies around, potentially the Corviknight or the Togekiss builds. Frostmoth as well seems very solid in the Sword and Shield On formats. There's a ton of VMAXs you can look at in the water department. There's Inteleon, there's Lapras, there's Blastoise, there's all sorts. I feel like Inteleon has the most upside right now, and I also believe Inteleon could be a strong enough archetype foregoing the Frostmoth altogether. Let's not forget that Melanie is a supporter coming out from Chilling Rain that can give yourself extra energy attachments to your V Pokemon. Water energy attachments, so perfect synergy with Inteleon potentially. So we could be going for a pure Inteleon Hammers based build with Melanie as the acceleration towards that max bullet, so also bear that in mind. But Frostmoth in general seems pretty strong with the support remaining that we have compared to other types, really. And for grass, there's some nice type-specific stuff. There's Aromatic and there's Turfield. The best grass stuff I can see so far is Decidueye being able to wall a number of the cards on these slides, and Orbeetle being potentially the strongest VMAX, where you have that spread approach from the Eerie Beam, and you have that Gmax wave attack as well, which is punishing archetypes for attaching too many energy cards overall. So yeah, just a quick dip into the Sword and Shield On for archetypes. If you were looking for some inspiration, if you did want to start parking some cash into some cardboard, if you're just itching to get shuffling and playing at the tables again, and if you want to have things that not only have value right now, but have long-term growth post-rotation, these are some of the archetypes that I would be looking at to kick things off. I hope you did find this video useful, and let me know down below what you thought and what you are going to be looking to play in the Sword and Shield On format. Have you been playing any of these tournaments? Will you give it some consideration now that we have the confirmation that come September, we will no longer be playing with tag team Pokemon? I know a lot of people are rejoicing about that fact. So yeah, let's see how it turns out. Obviously, once again, I will be doing a Chilling Reign buy list when the time comes, obviously in around a month's time or so. Closer to the release of the set, so keep an eye out for that as well, because it could also help you in terms of what you want to get for this rotation meta as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.